It's October 31st, 1987, 3 in the morning. In a quiet suburban home on the edge of Salem, Massachusetts, the wind whispers through skeletal trees, rattling the windows as if the house itself is shivering. Inside, candlelight flickers, casting dancing shadows on the walls. In a corner, a forgotten porcelain doll with cracked eyes sits silently. The floorboards creak, each groan echoing in the dead of night. Outside, cloaked in darkness and a thin veil of fog, a figure emerges in the backyard, motionless, watching. The family asleep inside will awaken in just a few moments to a terror they can't comprehend. This house, built in 1924, had a history of whispers long before that fateful night. The Peterson family bought it in 1979, completely unaware of the stories clinging to its walls. It was situated near one of Salem's lesser-known graveyards, a detail that seemed insignificant at the time, but the locals knew. They spoke quietly of a girl who had vanished from the area decades earlier. Her disappearance left no trace except for a blood-stained swing set and the sudden departure of her family. Folklore claimed her spirit lingered, a sentinel of sorrow and unresolved vengeance, and that anyone who saw her would be forever changed. The late 1970s had seen a surge of interest in the paranormal. The occult revival and a fascination with New England as haunted history created a tension between the rational and the unseen that hung over neighborhoods like a specter. She felt an unmistakable impression that someone or something was standing right outside the kitchen window. She called to her husband, who gradually dismissed it as a draft or a stray cat, but the feeling intensified. The air itself grew heavier, charged with an invisible presence. Drawn by the mounting dread, the family moved to the living room and peered through the sliding glass door, and that's when they saw her. A young girl in a tattered white dress, her hair obscuring a pale face, standing perfectly still on the lawn. Her gaze seemed fixed not just on the house, but on them, penetrating with an intensity that defied all explanation. Police reports from that night confirmed the family's account. They stood frozen for several minutes, unable to process what they were seeing. Was she real or a ghost? The local constabulary noted that this wasn't the first time. Similar sightings had been reported in the region for decades, each one eerily consistent. A young girl seemingly lost in time, appearing between 2:30 and 4 o'clock a.m., motionless and silent, often near the property lines of homes built before 1930. If you look back, you can find the threads. Newspapers from Salem in the 1950s and 60s documented unexplained disappearances of children near old graveyards. Community bulletins warned residents to stay out of the woods and abandon lots after nightfall. Paranormal investigators later offered theories. Some believed it was a residual haunting, an imprint of a tragic event replaying itself. Others thought it was a conscious spirit, observing and interacting with the living in ways that were both subtle and terrifying. The contrast between what the Petersons expected and what they experienced highlights the profound psychological impact of such encounters. They had anticipated a harmless night, maybe a mouse scurrying in the walls, or the wind rattling a shutter. Instead, they faced something that violated all reason. The girl didn't move, yet her presence conveyed a palpable threat, twisting the ordinary into something deeply unnatural. This is the very core of our fascination with ghosts. The ordinary transformed into the uncanny, the safe into the threatening, the familiar into the unfathomable. Neighbors later recalled a strange, unnatural stillness that night, as if the very air was holding its breath, attentive to the events unfolding in the Peterson backyard. And historical evidence supports the idea that this wasn't an isolated incident. Court records from the early 1980s show complaints of trespassers who reported seeing a similar girl on private property, a girl who would vanish as abruptly as she appeared. Paranormal investigators cataloged hundreds of these occurrences along the Salem corridor, noting the consistency in time, appearance, and behavior. A 1984 newspaper clipping even detailed a teenager who drove past the Peterson property and glimpsed the same figure, her hair obscuring her face, staring from the edge of the yard. When he tried to approach her, she was simply gone, leaving behind only the cold echo of fear. The terror of these encounters leaves a lasting scar. Families who experienced repeated sightings reported disrupted sleep, heightened anxiety, and a persistent feeling of being watched, long after the figure was gone. These real events help shape the horror tropes we see in movies and books today: the spectral child, the haunted suburban home, the midnight apparition. Urban legends grew from these encounters, becoming cautionary tales about curiosity, vigilance, and the invisible boundaries between life and death. Psychologists say these stories resonate because they tap into the tension between the familiar and the unknown, allowing us to confront our fears from the safety of a narrative. At the center of this story is a recurring symbol, the broken window through which the girl is first seen. The fractured glass represents the barrier between worlds, the fragile line separating the living from the spectral, the flimsy shield of our perceived safety. In every retelling, the window is a constant motif, a lens through which we observe our own fear. The flickering candles, the creaking floorboards, the howling wind, they all frame her presence at the threshold between domestic normalcy and otherworldly terror. When we confront such events, we are forced to consider the limits of our own perception, the fragility of what we think we know, and the inescapable allure of the unknown. The girl, standing silently in the night, becomes more than a ghost. She embodies our fascination with mortality, with fear, and with the thin veil separating the seen from the unseen. And so the house remains, its boarded window a silent witness, the backyard a stage for the unresolved, and the girl forever waiting. Those who have seen her, like the Petersons, carry that memory like a shadow that never fades, a reminder that the world is larger, stranger, and infinitely more mysterious than we are often willing to admit. As the wind whispers once more through the trees and the candles flicker against the darkness, one question remains. Who truly stands in the backyard at 3 a.m., and what do they see when they look back at us? Thanks for watching. If you have your own stories of strange encounters, share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys into the unknown. Stay safe out there.